Welcome. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate that you're taking the time. You could be doing a million other things right now, but you did come here. That means that you're one of the few people who do instead of the ones who just talk. Now, if you just lost your job, the last thing that you may feel like is watch a job webinar right now, especially if you always did a great job and this just came out of nowhere and from somewhere that you couldn't control. Now, on the other hand, if you see this as an opportunity and you always waited for for this to happen, so you have the excuse to do something new, then you may think, I can do this myself. Why should I be listening to her? But bear with me. I may not have all the answers for you, but I may have some tools and services that could be of real benefit to you, no matter which stage you're at. Now, at this point, I usually had some big section about me and my credentials and why you should be listening to me, but truth be told, people aren't really all that interested, as long as they get something out of the webinar. So I've kept it very, very short. And if you're interested, this is who I am. Hello, everybody. I know these are challenging times for all of us. It's a difficult situation right now, especially if you have a business and you have to keep this business running with all the measures that are in place. And I know how that feels like because this is not my first rodeo. Oh my God, this has happened so many times before, not necessarily an international pandemic, but that an external event just came along and wiped out everything that I worked for. Like, for example, the first real job I got into it. It was really, really difficult to get into. It was a very difficult industry to get into, but I managed and I was really proud of myself and I lost the visa. I had to start over again. A few years later, I tried the same thing again. I got in again. I managed to get in. I managed to find the right contacts and everything. And a few months after I was in, well, they shut down the entire industry due to a strike for a year. And it was all gone again. So I learned, I went to a different industry, right? Different place again, different industry. And I worked myself into something that, a lot of people try to get into and can't. And I actually managed to get into it by luck. And 2 months later, basically the entire industry exploded. It was like this whole thing is following me. And of course, now I just started a live events business thinking that, I wanted to be industry independent just in case something like this happens again. And I also wanted to be location independent. So now we have a international pandemic. I can't even go anywhere else. So I do understand when you're frustrated because something from outside comes that you have absolutely no control over and that you can probably not even foresee and hedge against. And suddenly it destroys everything that you worked so hard for.
Why is this happening to me all this time? Every time I make it into somewhere, something happens and I'm going to have to move on.
But one of the good things that came out of all these events that happened to me is that I picked up some tools on the way. I picked up some tools on how to handle these situations, both in terms of personal development, personal emotional management, but also in terms of how to do business change, because part of the business that I worked in for over a decade was business change in large international corporations. So if you want to know more about my background, there's more on the website. What I want you to know, though, is that I really do understand how it feels like if the rug is pulled from under you. And for a lot of people, it's not just the money they lose. It is the social circle. It is singing in the choir. It is going to the football field with mates. It is, going to the pub after work. And it's also the structure of the day. So there's a lot of things that hang together with having a job or not having a job that I do understand make things very difficult, especially during things like a pandemic, like right now, which is when this video is recorded. Today is actually the first day that we're allowed out again because people don't have resources that they can usually use in order to get over something like this, like go to the pub with friends because it's not allowed right now. That makes it double difficult. And isolation certainly doesn't help. But what I do have to say is that it happened to me quite a few times that something like this happened, not necessarily during a pandemic, but sometimes during times where I was alone in a place because I didn't know anybody there yet, or didn't know anybody that well yet. So I didn't have anybody to go to, but I did find some tools and some techniques that really helped, which I can now pass on. Now, who is this webinar for? It is for people who are hungry, who want to make things happen, who may does not really know how to do that. It is for people who are intelligent or street smart. There's a difference there, but both can be equally valuable in the marketplace. It is also for professionals who may be really good in their job, but who may never have had to work themselves into a new profession by themselves before. They may have done professional development, but it was always prescribed by the employer who told you what to do, what not to do, what to learn, and you were expected to follow instructions. And now suddenly you have to give the instructions to yourself. So that can be a little bit confusing because you don't really know what you have to take into account. It can also be really interesting for entrepreneurs who had a product for a long time that really worked. And now they suddenly find, because of the change in the marketplace, they have to make a radical shift. So this product can also help with these radical shifts. Who is it not for? It is not for people who want to be told every step of the way what to do. There are other webinars for this. This is not the one. This one will help you figure out what you have to do. It will help you figure out the way on how to navigate through whatever new profession you want to do, but it will not give you the step-by-step guide to, whatever profession you're choosing. It wouldn't be possible anyway, and it also wouldn't necessarily help you because there's going to be a lot of changes in the future where people have to work themselves into new jobs, into new careers, into new areas again and again and again, which means they have to be self-sufficient. They have to know how to learn and how to work themselves into it in an efficient way. And if you get step-by-step instructions, that will never get you there. You will always be dependent on the person who gave you the instructions. And if something out of the ordinary comes, you will not be able to deal with it. So this is not the kind of webinar for this kind of thing. But there are other webinars out there who deal with this. So if you're looking for something like this, feel free to check them out. It is also not for people who want to make a quick buck. Now, this webinar may actually help you work yourself into these professions that you think will make you a quick buck. But in my experience, it always takes quite a bit of work. Or you have to pay somebody else a whole lot of money to do the work for you. So you can still use this webinar in order to work yourselves into that, but I'm not going to make you any money promises. Now, are you ready? I will first show you a little bit of why I'm doing this and a little bit of what I think is really important in terms of mindset in order to be successful. And then we'll go right into the system, which makes it easier, faster, and safer to get to the other side and get to your dream job even. I mean, why not? Other people have done it. Why not you? And at the end, we're going to show you some bonus videos as well with some additional tools. Now, if you want to take it further at the end, because I obviously cannot show you everything that there is about the system in just 1 hour, then there will be an offer at the end, but there's no obligation to buy. And the webinar now is already giving you a whole lot of value that is could be really helpful if it only gives you one idea, one inspiration that could make the difference between success and failure. So are you ready?
I mean, how many people really love their job nowadays? How many people wake up on Monday morning and think, oh, great, I can go to work again? You know, probably not quite that many. And the point is that with all these job changes, once you're, in your 40s or maybe even in your 50s, you're much more aware of who you are and what you really want to do. Because when you're in your 20s, it happens a lot of times that you do what other people want you to do, what your parents want you to do, what they expect from you, or what you think they expect from you. It may not be the exact job, but they may have some sort of idea that you should go to university or that you should make a certain amount of money, for example. Or there are simply pressures of life. And you don't have any other training. So you may not have the ability to do the job yet that you're really meant to do because you don't have the background yet. If you take a look at all the things that are beautiful, all the things that come your way that you couldn't necessarily expect. And sometimes there are these, if you really look, there are these chance encounters with people that you will think of in decades to come. And sometimes they're very, very short, and sometimes they're longer, and sometimes they completely change your life. And a couple of things he said directly to me, and they just totally hit it on the spot. I thought, how on earth can he know that? So I thought, okay, why is he doing it? He really does seem to care. It doesn't seem to be just a marketing thing. And that really got me in a way. There was so much love and there's so much genuine caring in there. it just reached me on a level that nobody had reached me before, certainly in a long time. So something happened that day. So after I saw Tony at the NAC, as I said, I lost 42 pounds. And that was the first step for me to get fit again and get all the energy that I needed in order to make changes in my life. And then there was another change I had to make, because I was basically still stuck in my home, right? And I need to get out of that situation. And one of the things that he said in the talk was that people do more for other people than they do for themselves. So I thought, okay, how can I do something for other people? And that got me out of the house. And then I decided, okay, so what am I going to do? What else can I contribute? The first thing I did is I went to all kinds of seminars. And then I started coaching. And then it turned out I had been doing this for such a long time without actually realizing it. And I found so much joy in it. It was just so beautiful to see how just with, one suggestion or something, you can help people find a different perspective on life. And all of a sudden, everything changes. So that was a real revelation. I had such a feeling of accomplishment afterwards. I flew home. I mean, I was sitting in the car, I was whooping, I was singing, and I thought, this is it. And this is what you sometimes have, even if initially it's it doesn't go the way that you think. But if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you're meant to do, something inside you knows. And something inside you sings. I mean, literally, it was beautiful. You can make a difference by being Martin Luther King, or by being Nelson Mandela. Or you can make a difference by being the school teacher who put them on their path. The school teacher is not going to be the one who's going to be famous, but who says that history would be the same if she hadn't been there. You never know what you put into motion. It can be good or bad, you cannot control it, but only because you're not famous, only because you're not rich, doesn't mean that your life didn't have a purpose. If you're open to it, if you're open to doing the right thing, to doing good, to standing up for the right thing, then amazing things can happen. Sometimes you will know, sometimes you won't. It is the experiences and the relationships that you have on the way that really make you think, oh my God, this was really beautiful. This was really something that I wouldn't have wanted to have my life without. And especially if you made a difference for someone. Quite a few times it was actually very lucky, especially that time in Netheravon where I got stuck on that muck heap with a caravan and my pets. It was the most beautiful accident of my life, because I was stuck there. I was parachuting for 9 months. I was writing a book and I was surrounded by all these animals that I loved. It was one of the nicest years ever, really. And that was all because there was a hang-up with a visa. So I had to stay there. I didn't have a choice. And my landlady was very nice. I still visited her for, I think, like 10 years afterwards. Just showed up and occasionally did a little bit and then helped her a little bit and everything. It was a beautiful year. It was really nice. So a lot of times if something happens, it's really about the journey. And that's how I understood what people mean when they say it's about the journey. Because it really is. Nowadays, all these new technologies that are coming up, they are actually helping the environment. They're actually cleaning up the environment. There's so much technology out there now that can help us save the planet. And if you're trying to find a new job for somebody and they have some sort of skills in that area, you can just as well find them a job that is really good for the environment, is really good for them, and makes them feel good, because they know that they're doing something really important. That is the beauty of this time that we're in. There are so many opportunities out there. If you are a really creative person, there is so much out there for you. And there are so many more customers that are coming online as well. There are billions of customers that are coming online in the next few years, who will be connected online in the next few years, and who all want to buy something. So I'm getting really excited when I look at these things, and I'm plugged into a few of these networks where they're saying, what the future holds. And, it can be scary, but there's also some real opportunities out there. So the future is beautiful if you make it so. But what you have to do is you have to get off your BUT in order to do it, because it will not come to you. You have to get out there. And as most actors say, 80% of life is showing up and looking for the opportunities out there. Change sounds like a dry subject to a lot of people, but oh my god, can it make the difference in your life? A little switch of perspective in your mind, and all of a sudden, new worlds open up to you. Possibilities you never thought you had, and life switches from routine, maybe even depressing routine, to something you can genuinely get excited about, something that makes you smile and laugh for no good reason, with eureka moments in the middle of lunch or in the middle of the night when you jump out of bed at 2 a.m., not because you're too stressed to sleep, but because you're so excited about an idea you need to write it down before it goes away, and it just cannot wait until morning. Something where you work in a great team with everyone working together, or renewed energy, or just the time to have some fun. And if you haven't got that already, that's what we want to help you find. It is a journey, and not always an easy one. You will hit obstacles along the way, and there are times when you want to give up. But if you stick with it, and you're determined, the rewards can be astounding. And even if you don't end up exactly where you want to go, the journey alone, the growth you experience by expanding yourself, will make it worthwhile. Was it always easy for me? Oh, goodness no. The book gives you a few examples of how I learned some of the principles I now teach, and you may get a good laugh out of it, but boy was it dramatic at times. One time I ended up in a hotel room with 3 pets, £36,000 in credit card debts, £2,000 credit to go, no flat, no job, nowhere to go, and every agent I called, about 30 of them, told me I wasn't qualified to work in the country, although I was. But 6 months later, I had a job, a house, and a mortgage, believe it or not. More than a few times I got stuck in a situation that I should have gotten out of much earlier, put up with the pain I didn't need to put up with, because I just didn't want to acknowledge that I needed to move on, because I could hardly deal with the situation as it was, and I didn't want to have yet more things to deal with in a change. Sometimes it was just plain scary. I know when I emigrated to Canada, I went and took skydiving lessons beforehand because I figured that if I could get myself to jump out of a plane, then I could also jump into Canada. I had done the whole move continents with nobody on the other side bit twice already, and I knew how scary it was at that point, and I just couldn't get myself to do it, so I went skydiving in order to get into the spirit of things, I suppose. But that's exactly why I want to share with you what I learned, so you can avoid the pitfalls and avoid the mistakes I made. Why reinvent the wheel? So, let's get started. I give you the 4 ingredients of successful change, and these 4 ingredients may be something you have heard before. But unlike what you usually get in these types of webinars, I will also give you how they fit into the larger system so that you can apply them to any change you want to make, and also the method of how to get there, especially if the change you want to make requires learning new tools and strategies to succeed. We also have some bonus free webinar links at the end to illustrate 3 of the 4 ingredients in a bit more detail. The first ingredient is the decision. Every change starts with a decision. Sometimes the trick is how to get there, and that is what we will address later, but you gotta make a decision. But a lot of people don't. Why not? Sometimes it is fear, but sometimes it is also simply because they don't know how to go about initiating that change, so they do nothing. But doing nothing is a decision too. And sometimes it is more dire in the long run not to make a decision than any radical change could have been. In one of the bonus videos at the end, I will show you what I mean. The video is about 7 minutes long and it gets a bit dramatic in between, but sometimes that is necessary to make a point, because we don't want to make the same mistake. And I promise you, it gets fun at the end, and all exciting on the next slide. Watch the video and ask yourself, how young do these people in the second part feel? How alive do they feel? Would you like to be a warning or an example? Who would you like to be with? What else do you need to make a successful change? You need to commit. And that usually means you have to at least schedule it. Now, is a decision and a commitment enough? Well, let's see. I've done it, and this is what the outcome was. So, I made a decision that I wanted to be an actress in Miami. As you do, I had just finished my legal education, and I thought going to Miami and becoming an actress was the next best thing. Well, of course, I didn't have any contacts, I didn't know anybody, and I hardly spoke the language at the time. I had 1 month of acting training, but I thought, hey, I gotta shoot for the stars, not for the ceiling. I'm going to make this work, right? So I'm ending up there, and of course things don't really go my way initially, with all this no plans whatsoever. And so anyway, so I'm going to acting class. At least I had figured that bit out. So decision and commitment is very basic to make a change, but I did make that change. So I went to this acting class, and my acting teacher told me in order to get acting jobs, I needed to get auditions. And in order to get auditions, I had to find out who the casting directors were and make a, and get a relationship with them. And he said, okay, a relationship. So how do I do that? Well, you drop by. You cannot just send mail shots. Okay, fine. So I drove, to the north of Miami to this one casting director, and I knock on the door and nobody opens. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me. I've been driving for 2.5 hours in heavy traffic, and there's, I don't even have the money for the gas, and there's nobody opening. So I knock again and nobody's opening. I thought, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. And I knock on the door next door and I ask him, do you know where they are? And the guy opens and said, no, I haven't seen them for a while. They may not even be working there anymore. And I thought, oh, great, And the guy looks at me and says, do you have makeup? And I thought, what a weird question to ask. It's on my face, right? But I didn't really say anything. And I said, yeah, I do have makeup in the car. And he said, oh, great, come in. You're going to be our makeup artist. And I thought, makeup artist? I've never done makeup before. Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. The director is going to tell you how to do this. And one of the things that my acting teacher had told me was that if you're on stage and you're improvising, you never say no but. You always say yes and. Because if you say no but, the scene is basically over. But if you say yes and, it may lead to hilarious results. And he also gave me this book by Stephen Nachmanovich, which was Improvisation in Life and Art. He was a famous violinist, may still be. And I had decided I would make my life a work of art. And I would say yes and to everything. So when this guy asked me, do you want to be a makeup artist? I said, yes and. So I walked in and I'm with my makeup, and it turns out to be special effects makeup. I had never even done normal makeup before. How do you do special effects makeup? But, the director helped me, and it worked out fine, and it was fun, and I got paid for the night, which was, what an experience. I would actually be able to make the rent, and it was great. And then the director came up to me at the end of the night and said, Petra, did you like this? And I said, yeah, it was great. And he said, well, we've got another shoot in a couple of days. Do you want to come? I said, yeah, sure. And he said, we need a PA. And I thought, yeah, thank God. Yeah, PA I can be, PA is just, getting coffee and, getting something from the hardware store. That's going to be fine. I'll be a PA. So I'm turning up 2 days later. And I'm turning up on the set, and everything is beautiful, and everybody shows me stuff, and it's so generous. And the camera people show me camera stuff, and the sound people show me how the sound works, and the lighting people show me how the lighting works, and they're all so nice to me, and I'm learning so many things, and that's great. And then the director at lunch fires the cameraman. So he comes up to me and says, hey, Petra, how are you enjoying yourself? And I said, oh, it's great. I'm learning all this new stuff and I'm really excited. And he said, yeah, well, have you ever run the camera before? I said, no. These were these huge, big studio cameras that you see on TV, these huge, big things that you drive around and stuff. I had never even seen these things before. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. You know what? We've got an hour for lunch and I'm going to show you everything you need to know. You're going to be our camera person for the rest of the shoot. Yes, and sure, yeah, an hour, and you're going to make me a professional camera person. Sure, that's not going to be a problem at all. I thought, oh my God, the guy's crazy. But you know what? It wasn't all that difficult because there were two really professional camera people, who were selling the shots and stuff. And I was just the steady cam in the background who would zoom in and zoom out and zoom in and zoom out, zoom in, and maybe a rec focus. But that was the most difficult thing I had to do. And it was edited at the same time, simultaneously, and I would hear all this stuff over the headphones. I would see on the video monitors what the other camera people were seeing. I was learning so much, and it was so cool. And at the end of the shoot, one of the camera people comes up to me, the one who was really good, and says, Petra, did you enjoy yourself? I said, yes, it was cool. I learned all this stuff. I know so much more about shooting a video now than I knew before. And she said, okay, so, we have a live TV show in a couple of days. Do you want to come and be a camera person for us? I said, live TV show? Yes, and of course, yes. Oh my God, my career is really taking off. It's not taking off anywhere where I wanted to go, but it is taking off. I am a camera person on a live TV show after like a week. This is so cool. So I get there, 2 days later, and I show up on the TV set, and the director looks at me and says, not sure how to tell you this, but you don't really have all that much experience, do you? And I said, no experience? I've got 2 days. Well, I didn't say that. I actually thought it, and I said, yeah. No, he said, we've got a really professional camera person here. I said, oh, okay, fine. You know what? I just sit in the back. It's going to be fine. I'll just watch it a little bit. And he said, no, you don't understand. We do have a professional camera person, but we don't have a floor manager. We need a floor manager. So you get yourself down there. I said, floor manager? What's a floor manager? He said, it's the guy with the signs and stuff. I said, signs and stuff? What signs and stuff? It's not going to be that difficult. You just get down there and you're going to be fine. 9, 8, 7. Oh, you got to get down there. 6, 5. And I'm running down there and I'm putting my headphones on. And shit, I don't know what signs and stuff. And the director shows and, points at me and says, okay, give them the sign for go. And I'm looking at these 2 actors on the stage and I go, and they start talking. Oh, I go, oh, thank God. Now I can actually finally ask someone what these signs and stuff are, what floor manager does. Then it dawns on me, it is a live TV show. I cannot just go and ask anybody because the audience would hear it, right? I'm sitting on the floor. So I think, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have no idea what these signs are. It's going to be so embarrassing. I have no idea. And oh my God, they're talking and... But after a while, I kind of calmed down because they were just talking. It was a collectibles show and they were kind of funny. So I'm kind of watching the show and then the director kind of looks up and says, okay, Petra, give them the sign for break. We're going to commercial. And looks down again. And I think, sign for break. I don't know what the sign for break is. I don't know. I hope she looks up again. And the director looks up again. Petra, give her the sign for break. We have to go to commercial. I don't know what the sign for break is. I don't know. And I'm going, And those 2 people on the stage go, but they keep talking. And I think, oh my God, what am I going to do? We're going to commercial and they keep talking and I'm just almost sawing my head off with my thumb there, right? And those 2 people go, both at the same time. I can just imagine what the TV audience must have thought. They didn't see me going like this. They just saw those 2 people going like, oh my God. And, at some point I actually realized that the cameraman next to me is almost wetting himself. And he turns around to me and he's going, oh. Break. So the 2 people stopped talking. And that was okay. So the moral of this whole story was, it was such fun. Everything worked well on that one. And it was really cool. So this was exciting and it got me somewhere. But you know what? It didn't get me anywhere where I really wanted to go. Do you follow? I mean, it is exciting. You can kind of figure out new ways of how to live your life and, see everything that's out there. But at some point, what else do you need for a successful job change? A job change that you actually end up in the direction where you actually want to be. We need a plan or a map. And what do you need for a plan? You need to know where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. Because without a plan and a long-term map, you diffuse your energies. You get pulled into 10 different directions and never get where you want to go. And what's worse, when the going gets tough, you cannot see anymore where you're going, and you lose your way. That's usually when people give up, because they cannot see anymore how they can possibly get to their goal. Change can be a scary thing, and sometimes you need a compass, some systems to show you where you are and where the direction is that you need to go into. Otherwise, you cannot find your way. I used to go scuba diving in a pitch black lake, and we dived at a 100-yard deep wall, and if you dived away from the wall or you dived at a deep wreck and you had to come up again, you would have no reference points, whether you would go up or down and how fast you were going, especially once your ears were used to diving and that they adjusted to the pressure differentiation automatically. So all you had was this little thing on your wrist that told you that you were going up or down and how fast you were going, so you wouldn't speed up to the surface without a safety stop, which would basically kill you. If you go cave diving, you have a piece of string with you to show you the way back, just in case you lose orientation, because you don't want to get stuck in a cave somewhere and not find your way out when you run out of air. That is what you need when things get tense, because sometimes they will get tense. And your plan will be all you have to orient yourself by, because your mind will just be overwhelmed by the changes and the pressure. That's where the wheat is differentiated from the chaff. That's where excellence shows itself. Give yourself the best chance possible to get there. Don't be too afraid to vary your map on occasion and be flexible, and that is also something we go into in the seminar, but do have one, do have a map, and do have a plan. So, what is the last ingredient? Determination. The will to keep going no matter what. Now, how do you get that determination? Well, you may just be pig-headed and stubborn, but most people need a bigger reason than just themselves and their own self-interest. Otherwise, they give up when things get too tough. However, if you have something bigger than yourself that you're serving and contributing to, then you'll stick with the plan even if it gets really hard. Tony Robbins quotes Martin Luther King, who is said to have said that any man who doesn't have something to die for isn't fit to live. You may hold this to be true or not, but one thing is for certain. Most people will keep going to keep their children safe, to protect their community, to preserve history, to finish the movie, to save the whale, or to protect the environment, or whatever it is for you, long after they would have gone home and gone to bed if it had just been for themselves. Now, these 4 ingredients are really what you need. But for most people it is also helpful to have a bit more than that and to not fly completely blind into the unknown. A decision is nice, but a decision to do what? How do you get to that decision? What does a commitment look like? How do you construct a map or a plan? What do you need to take into account? And what does that determination look like in practice? As it happens, for some reason or other, mostly due to changes out of my control, like I mentioned before, loss of a visa, a year-long strike, or even now Brexit, I found myself in a situation several times that I had to change jobs or even professions very suddenly. And looking back on it, I found that I had actually developed a system on how to do that. A system that bears close resemblance to what I learned at university, because at university I did not learn a job. I learned how to learn. How to work myself into things. See, I was trained originally as a judge, and in the country where I graduated, a judge did not necessarily have the ability to simply go to somebody more senior to ask for advice on a case, and there was no budget for outside counsel in matters of law. And moreover, after graduation, the graduate could be assigned anywhere by the state, criminal law, administrative law, or civil law, with everything that fell under these fields except tax. And that is pretty much all of human behavior. So it was impossible to predict what a graduate would need to know and which aspect of law he or she would need to understand. So we were taught instead how to teach ourselves, how to work ourselves into materials that we had never seen before and apply laws that we had never read before and apply them correctly. And only those who could demonstrate that they could do this passed each of the 2 exams. Working yourself into a new job or career is no different, except that there is a practical component beyond the exam. So what we learned at university worked with a couple of modifications. So this is what the Design Your Future system looks like. It is embedded in the vision for your life and the mission in your life, and it has heart and emotion at its core, because without emotion, you will not have the energy and joy to reward you for your successes. And around the core of the heart are the 6 different stages that all successful job or career changes tend to go through. In some of these cases, these can be very short stages. In others, each stage can take months or even years, depending on how much time you have, and it is an endless cycle. Each of these stages also has sub-stages. We have given the sub-stages handy acronyms, or named all of these sub-stages with the same letter, to make it easier to remember. It is predicted that we will all need to change jobs and careers much more often and much faster in future. So this is a system that we may use again and again and again. The acronyms make sure that we do not forget one of the vital components. To just go over the 6 stages real quick, this is what they are. So what was the first E? Do you remember from the last slide? Let me give you a hint. If you do this, you may make 2 or 3 times the money after the change than you made before. You may be happier than ever before, and you may be able to get the job of your dreams. If you don't do this, you may get stuck or go bankrupt. What do I mean? Explore. Explore your options and explore them thoroughly. And there is a system to that, different steps to go through. And if you leave one of them out, it could have dire consequences for your future. Why? Well, if you don't do this, you will probably get a worse job than before. You may choose a job that may go away again very soon. You may even go bankrupt, and what's worse, if you miss out one of these particular steps, you may never get over what happened. That external thing that made you lose your job, and you will feel like a victim forever. Sounds dire, doesn't it? So, we teach our students the tool we developed for this stage to avoid this. We call it the Arrive at Yourself tool, and I'll get into that a bit later. The second E. What happens if you do this? Well, you get a certain amount of certainty about the future that will give you drive and momentum. You learn what works and what doesn't work. You may save yourselves months or years of failure. What happens if you don't do this? You spend loads of time and money on training or a product that won't make you a dime. What do I mean? Experiment and research. Why? Well, you may get a great idea in your exploration phase, and there in that exploration phase you don't want to limit yourself. But now you need to find out whether it's viable. You may need to investigate the likely future of your next profession. For instance, your change may not be radical enough. Say, if you're a truck driver who is about to lose his job due to automation, you may want to choose something else than being an Uber driver in your next profession, because Uber will be automated as well. Or if you have always been interested in energy, oil may not be the industry you may want to seek for your future. For starters, the cost of the upkeep of platforms and infrastructure in the oil industry is massive versus solar, where you just need to build your plant and that's pretty much it. And that means solar is much more efficient to run, not to mention the environmental impact. So you may want to invest into an industry that has future, rather than one that runs out of one. An experiment: if you have a company and want to launch a new product, you don't want to put all your energies into developing something that will never work, because nobody wants it. There are techniques on how to research and experiment most effectively, and in our training we will teach you how to do that. That is what the MUST stands for. What would happen if you do this? You'll know what you're doing, or at least you have a good idea. You know you've done all you can to prepare, so you can give this your all with maximum confidence. What would happen without this? You'll feel like a fake. You know you're not supposed to be there, and everybody will feel it. And you have chosen something that is even slightly challenging for you, you will fail. What? Education. Education for yourself and others. Why? Can't you just wait until your new boss tells you what to do? No! It may have worked like this in the past, at least in some industries and in some countries, but nowadays employers are looking for people who can hit the ground running. You may not even be able to get into the job, even if you don't need a qualification, if you cannot demonstrate in the interview that you have a good idea of what you're doing. You'll also be much happier in your first few days and weeks if you know what you're doing. I've got a few examples for that. For example, at Goldman, I was negotiating ISDAs. When I first started, I didn't know what a swap was. I didn't know what collateral was. I wasn't just that I didn't know the vocabulary, because I obviously was not English. I didn't even know the concept. I wouldn't have survived without having educated myself on the subject first before I even started working there. And even then it was a very close thing, because the credit crunch basically hit, or they knew that it would hit, within 2 months of me starting working there. You may not care too much in your current job. You may even be used to being able to complain that you haven't been trained properly, but would you really want to lose out against someone else only because they were prepared and you weren't? If it was your dream job, and maybe you would only have one chance at success. The fourth E, remember which one this was? Let's give you a hint again. What would happen if you do this? Well, things will happen. You will take the first step, you will know where to go, and if you get lost in the middle, you will find your way back again. What will happen if you don't do this? You will likely fail, especially if things get tough. What do I mean? Engage, make a map, prioritize. Why? To give you direction, accountability, keep you on track, and keep you going when you doubt and become afraid and can't see the next step anymore. Because sometimes when you're really scared, and change will mean you will be scared, you get tunnel vision, and if you don't have a map at that point, you will get lost. We developed a list of top tips to make sure that you do this in the most efficient way, making it easier, faster, and safer to get to your goal. The fifth E. This one is crucial. If you do this, you will blaze through or find your way around any obstacle you may encounter, if there is a way at all. If you don't do this, you will not find the breakthroughs you need, and you will give up before you achieve your goal, because if it is worth doing, it will likely be hard. What do I mean? Execute. Execute with laser-sharp focus. Life is like a maze sometimes. Sometimes you don't really see where you're going. I mean, you have your goal, but you step into a wall and you turn right and you try to get around the obstacle, and you step into a wall again, and then you may have to go backwards, and then you find a wall again, and you go left again, and then you find a wall again, and you keep turning around, and sometimes you even have to backtrack a little bit. But if you keep going, you will get there. And that is what execution means. Execution means you keep going, you keep changing things if you need to change them because your approach doesn't work, and then you try something else, but you always keep going. You keep going until you're either there at the end of your goal, or you know that you cannot possibly achieve it anymore. But you do keep going. The sixth E is what? Evaluate. Evaluate and improve constantly. Why? Your company will only survive with a never-ending improvement. You are unlikely to be perfect on the first try, and if you try to be, you never get started. But knowing this is a cycle will encourage you to try again after a learning experience. It has been the one principle behind Toyota's success, Kaizen, and it has been modeled by many since. Given that jobs will be changing a lot in the future anyway, it's also great practice for yourself to keep yourself current and employable. And this is not just a must in high-end jobs like lawyers or doctors who need to keep up to date with regulations and current practice, or people in tech who need to keep up to date with current developments. You need to look at the feedback you get in any job nowadays to be successful. And if you stick around with us, you will get some amusing examples out of my life involving the Titanic and a woman called Fluffy. A dancing paper bag also featured in it. This is how this fits together with what we discussed earlier, the 4 vital ingredients for change. Exploration and experimentation give you the information and the intuition you need to make an informed decision. You demonstrate your commitment by educating yourself, and again, these 4 vital ingredients for change were decision, commitment, a plan, and then determination. You engage by making a plan of attack, and you demonstrate your determination by executing and keeping to execute and adjust to whatever feedback you get from the market and your customers or the system you work on, and by evaluating how you're doing, and by then starting the process again of exploring and experimenting of how you can further refine the approach, which again leads to a decision and so on. This approach can also be used for the launch of new products. Now, just to give you a bit of a taste of what these sub-stages are like for the different stages, let's start with the exploration stage and the sub-stages, which we use the acronym A.R.R.I.V.E for, as in Arrive at Yourself tool. You don't have the time to go through the entire tool, but we can go through the A and the second R at this point, as these are some of the most vital parts at that stage. Now remember what we said. The exploration stage is a very open stage where we do not limit ourselves. This is the A.R.R.I.V.E of the Arrive at Yourself tool, and we will be looking quickly at the A and the R. Now you finally get into the nitty-gritty of it. So what is the first A of Arrive at Yourself tool? Well, it is actually the hardest step of all of them. But if you get through this, you will get to a new life. And if you do this, you may find that you will have your dream job at the end of it. You may make 2 or 3 times more money than before, and you may be much happier. If you don't do this, however, You will take resentment into everything that you do. You will feel like a victim. You will likely have a much worse job than before. Your friends will not like you anymore because you're whining all the time. Or even worse, they'll be gloating because they think they're better than you. And the losers down at the pub, who have never managed anything in their life, will be your new best friends because you're so much like them. You laugh, but you know what? A lot of people hold on to their problems because that is how they connect. But in the long term, that can really, really hurt you. So what do I mean? I mean, accept. What do I mean by that? Accept where you are and run with it. That does not mean that you cannot fight. It does not mean that you accept what happened as fair. It also does not mean that you are defeated. It just simply means that you accept the reality of the situation exactly as it is, not better, not worse, and you move on to a solution. So you focus 90% of your energy onto the solution instead of the problem, instead of looking at the problem and wondering how it happened. Of course, you can do a little bit of rumination about it, and it may actually help you to see how you got to the point where you are right now so that it doesn't happen again. But it doesn't mean that you have to do this for 9 months. Do it for a couple of days, maybe a week. Analyze what happened. Analyze if you can learn something from it. You can also do this during the process again, but do not focus on the problem. Focus on the solution. Focus on where you want to go. It also does not mean that you cannot come back to the situation and deal with it later when you are in a better place. So why is this important? Well, I used to go skydiving, and our parachuting instructor told us when we wanted to land on a field, no matter how big that field is, if there's a tree on the field, do not look at the tree. Because if you're trying to land and you're looking at the tree, you're going to be landing in that tree. It doesn't matter how big that field is, you'll be landing in the tree because that is what you're focusing on, which means that you're unconsciously going towards that tree. It's the same thing if you're driving. If you're driving on the road and there's poles on the side or there's trees on the side and you get skittish, you're skidding a little bit on the street, then what you have to do is you focus on the gap in between the trees or the poles. Because if you focus on the poles of the trees, you're going to end up in that tree. That's just what happens. A lot of speakers use this example of this road in America where they apparently have these poles at the side of the road. And they've got a satellite image of it. And the satellite image shows that 80% of the skid marks go into the poles, which doesn't really make sense because there's huge gaps in between the poles. But apparently people are so afraid of ending up at the poles that they stir towards it. So they kill themselves on the poles instead of just going into the gap. So that is not what you want to do. So don't look at what you fear. Don't look at what happened, what could happen with it, that you're going to get bankrupt and that you don't know how to feed your family. Of course, that is something to be aware of, but don't focus on it. Focus on where you want to go. Now, accepting means letting go. And that can be difficult because you have a feeling that you're kind of validating what is happening and that you lose it forever. And letting go hurts. Letting go means the loss of a social circle. It means the loss of maybe your mates that you went drinking with in the pub. Maybe it's the choir that you were really excited about. Maybe it's the football field, the football game, or maybe the job really gave you meaning in your life, not only structure, but you had a purpose in life. And all of that is all of a sudden gone. And if you let go of that, it seems that in a way you're dying. A lot of people feel that way. But you know what? If you don't let go, the pain will not stop. And letting go doesn't mean that you cannot go back and reconnect once you're in a better place. It is about creating new life now. And then you can go back and reconnect with your colleagues. They're going to love you much more if you are in a good place and you bring joy to their life. Now you may still feel that because it was so unfair, you need to hold on to it. But what do you want to be? Do you really want to be a victim? Do you really think that if people see you suffer, they're going to give you your job back? Do you really think you get anywhere by punishing them? That it brings you forward? As said, once you are in the new position that you want to be in, you can still decide what you want to do about the situation. But sometimes you find if you look back that, if you make 2 or 3 times more money in the new job, maybe you're not going to be so unhappy about having lost it. And sometimes when you look back, when you're not that emotional anymore and you look at the situation, you may also see that there were a few things that you may not have seen before. A few things that you overlooked at the time because you were too emotional. And you may not want to do something about it, or you do. At least you're going to be in a place at that point where you can do something about it, where it's not going to destroy your life. So move on first. Now this is the accept part. It is a little bit longer in the longer seminar, but this is basically the root of it. And I do understand if you hold resentment in a way to even contemplate the acceptance part, especially if you've just lost your job. But do believe me, I know where you are, because it has happened to me, not necessarily that I was fired, but that external circumstances were just there where I couldn't do anything about it. If there's a year-long strike and you've just worked yourself into an industry, you've just become accepted and successful in that industry, in the entry level where you wanted to be, and it took you years to get there, and then all of a sudden there's a year-long strike and there's no jobs anymore. It is not a nice feeling. And I did have to move on at that point as well. But a lot of times, if you look back and you did move on and you did manage to make that jump, it is really amazing how things actually worked out much better for you than you thought. Let's take a look at the second R of arrive. So now you have accepted reality and you are relaxed. What should you now be doing to figure out where to go next? Well, let's put it this way. If you do this, you may figure out what to do to arrive at the life you always wanted. You may end up doing something for money that isn't a job, not even a career, but that is a mission. Something that drives you, keeps you up at night and gets you out of bed in the morning. And not out of fear, but out of excitement and a sense of purpose. Something that you have had a hard time putting down on the weekend because you want to learn and figure out more. If you don't do this, however, you may just end up with another job. Yet something else that steals your time during the week and causes you to wish your life away. Something you have to recover from on Friday night and dread to go back to on Monday morning. What am I talking about? Remember. Remember who you are. So the second R stands for remember. Now that's an anticlimax, you say. I already know who I am. This is my name. I live here. This is what I do for a living, or at least did until now. So what on earth do you mean with that? I mean, remember who you are at your core. Who have you always been? What have you always believed? And sometimes that is harder to figure out than you believe, because life just came at us. And a lot of people did what their parents wanted, what their mother expected from them, or their father expected from them, even if they weren't necessarily aware of it. Or maybe it was a grandfather, or maybe it was society. Maybe it was simply the pressures of life. You had to make money somehow, and then there was some job around, and people seemed nice, and you kind of got stuck in it. But what was it that really made your heart sing when you were a child? Remember that scene from The Lion King where Simba and Rafiki meet, and Rafiki shows Simba in the little puddle his own reflection, and then all of a sudden there's his father who says, "Remember who you are." It is quite like that. But it may also explain why you may not want to remember, because if you remember the story, Simba did go back and he became the king. He became the Lion King, and the story of life started again. But before he became the Lion King, he had to face his mother, and he had to face Scar, and he had to fight Scar. Maybe there's something that you are really meant to do, and maybe you know what it is, deep down inside your soul somewhere, but you know that it's going to be hard. Because anything worth doing is likely going to be hard. It's not going to be a walk in the park. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to stretch yourself to get there. But what is it? Do you have an idea? If you don't, there is a way to uncover it. And sometimes it takes several times. We do have a meditation that we do at the end. And what is really important for it is that, now there are different ways of how you can put yourself into a good mood. You can do some exercise, or you can dance, or you can watch your favorite movie. You can watch a comedy. Just do something that makes you feel really good before you start doing this. Something that makes you feel really energized, really energetic. Do whatever it takes. And then you can do this exercise. You can do other exercises too. You can go on a walkabout. Some people go on a walkabout for years to find themselves and to find out who they are. But sometimes it's enough to do this meditation to just get an inkling, maybe, of which direction to go into. You may not immediately see where it is going to lead. It may just be a very fuzzy picture somewhere in the distance. And then you can do this meditation again, maybe in a couple of months or so, and it's going to become a little bit clearer. And then you're going to see somebody maybe in a seminar, and all of a sudden it becomes clearer again, and then you see a possibility that you didn't see before. And again, a few months later, when you've taken some action, all of a sudden a door opens, something that you didn't think of before. And the more often you do this, the more often you meditate about it, the more often you do something to find out where you're supposed to go. Something happens, something opens inside. And eventually you will see the picture. You may not know how to get there yet, but you will see where you're meant to go, and all of a sudden you're going to know. And you know when it sings inside you, when this energy opens, all of a sudden you will know this is the thing you're meant to do. This is the thing that would make everything so much better for you and for your loved ones. It is there somewhere. You just need to try and find it. So put yourself into a great state. Somehow, do this exercise, do dancing around, do eat your favorite food, whatever it is for you, but something that keeps you energetic. And then close your eyes. We'll wait for you until you're ready. Close your eyes and then continue the tape. Now remember to dream big and don't limit yourself. Just think of everything that you could think of that you wanted to be as a child. What excited you? What did you want to be? What were you when you were playing with the other kids? What kind of games were you playing? Which ones did you like? Why did you like them? Did you want to be an astronaut? Or a fireman? Or a sheriff? Or did you want to be a doctor? What did you want to be when you grew up? And why? What kind of feeling did you want to get out of it? How did you want to be looked at by other people? What did you want to contribute to the world? What feeling did you want to get out of it? Now maybe you didn't become this, but why was it? Didn't you have the skills maybe at the time? Maybe not the money? Or somebody told you to become something else? Do you have the skills now? Did you get them through another job? Do you have the money now maybe to go for it? Even if you don't, what kind of feeling did you want to get out of it? Could you get this feeling through something else? Say if you wanted to be an astronaut, why did you want to be an astronaut? Did you want to go somewhere where nobody had gone before? Did you want to have an adventure? Did you want to serve humanity? Could you now find something else to do that would give you exactly the same feeling? How many other things are there that you could do that would give you exactly the same feeling? It doesn't really matter what vehicle you use to get to that feeling. It just matters that you get there, that you get that sense of contribution, that sense that you fulfilled the purpose of your life. What is there that you could do to get that feeling? How would you feel if it actually came true? Now put yourself into a rocking chair at the end of your life, and you think back as an old woman or an old man, what happened in your life and what you became. Now remember this moment, and remember you had a chance to make a choice, to go for it or not. How would you feel if you knew you had a chance to go for it, to go for your dream, for that which you always wanted to do, and you didn't? What would you think about yourself? Would there be disappointment? Would there be regret? That you could have tried this, but you were too timid? What would you think of yourself? On the other hand, what would you think of yourself if you went for it? If you just did it? If you just made a decision to go for it and make it work somehow? And then you would. And you can see your life how initially you didn't really know how to make it work, but then you found a way, and then you found another step, and you found another step, and you went for it, and it worked, and you got there. And it was so exciting, and you stood there and you couldn't believe that you finally got where you always wanted to be. And how did it feel? How did you feel about yourself? How did other people feel about yourself? What did your family think of yourself? What did your friends think? Do you have new friends now? Who are you with? Where are you? How exciting! How exciting does it feel? Now, why wouldn't you go there? Maybe because people could laugh at you, but would you really care? Why would you care if you could get there if people laugh at you for a second? What if you could get there? What if you could make it work? Just take it in. Just look around. Look at yourself in the mirror. And look at yourself, how proud you are of yourself. Now you don't know yet how to get there, but you know this is what you want to be. Now what could you contribute in this state to society? What have you contributed? Why was the world a better place? Because you have lived. What have you given to other people, to the environment, to animals, to anybody around you? What have you given that wouldn't have been there had you not lived? See it, take it in. Now slowly come back into this room. Feel your fingers and feel your toes and wiggle them a little bit. Start stretching and open your eyes. How did this feel? Was it an exciting experience? Did you find out something about yourself that you forgot, maybe? You don't really need to know how you could get there at this moment. You just need to know what you're aiming for. You don't even need to know the vehicle that you're going to be using. Maybe you're thinking of being an astronaut right now, but in reality you're going to be a deep-sea explorer. Or maybe you're going to go into the depths of psychology of people. Whatever it is, whatever you want it to be, it doesn't really matter how you get there. It matters that you get there, that you fulfill your purpose. So now you've got a little bit of an idea of where you want to go. Now it's time to figure out how to get there. Now write this down. I only have one life. I better make the most of it. And if I don't only have one life, then I don't want to come back as an ant. We don't really have a Q&A section in this webinar as it is recorded, but we do want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. Of course, some of these will be answered later, but if not, please do feel free to drop us an email at info@seekchange.co. Again, that's info@seekchange.co. We will also have a much longer webinar, which goes into much more details regarding the steps. Now this is the salesy bit that I talked about in the beginning, but please do stick with us. If you stick around to the end, we have 3 bonus webinar links for you that illustrate the points we made earlier in much more detail, and with stories that may or may not amuse or move you.
Now this is our offer currently during this crisis, because we know that a lot of people are hurting and we want to do a little bit to make it easier. So the usual 10-week video course is 497 euros. We won't charge you that, but this is what I'm just showing you what the normal price is. Then on top of that, you will get access to a high-level mastermind and or coaching, depending on what's available at the time, because we don't want our masterminds to be huge so that people don't really get any value out of it and it ends up being me just talking at you. But we want to keep them to 10, 15 people at a maximum, which will be over Skype, so you wouldn't have to be physically there. We may, if you are in the location, we may also have a location on the spot, and we may do events as well. But the usual mastermind will be over Skype, so you can dial in from wherever you are, and that is 297 euros at this moment. You will also have the option to become a member for life after 3 months of membership, and usually that's 6 months of membership, which could be, anything from, if you take a year to change professions, which is, a pretty normal standard time between 1 and 2 years to kind of work yourself into the new thing. A year itself would be 3,564 euros if you buy this on the website. Now there's an ebook accompanying the course, which will help you if you want to see things visually, and give you also some of the stories that will be told in the course, which may or may not be amusing to you. And the book itself is $7.99. Now if you come to the mastermind, there will be some training as well, some additional training, which usually happens in the beginning of the mastermind. And we will teach you some tools that in the past have only been accessible to people in very, very high-level masterminds, like $25,000, for example. But we can teach them to you now because we've got permission to use them. Then you will also have access to discounts available that are for online and offline events, as well as products. Now the usual price, if each one of these is purchased on its own, is 4,365 euros and 99 cents, which obviously we will not charge you. Now the usual discount for the package during promotions, something like a webinar like this, for example, is 497 euros. So you basically buy the 10-week course and you get all these bonuses free on top. But because there is a crisis right now and because so many people have lost their jobs, we decided to apply a 40% discount. So you can have the whole package for 297. And that is a really, really, really good deal, because there's 20 years of experience behind all of that, which I've taught in the course. There are a lot of very valuable tools in there, and each one of them could be the one that pulls you through. And all the videos in the course can be downloaded from day one, and they're yours to keep forever, whether you stay in the mastermind for a month or whether you stay in the mastermind forever. And the mastermind can be cancelled after the first month. That's not a problem at all, and you can still keep the course. But as said, if you stay in the mastermind for 3 months, instead of 6 months now, 3 months, then you will have access to this mastermind forever. And you can dip in and out, and if you need to change your job in future again, because this is going to happen again and again and again now, because a lot of things, there's digitization, automation, globalization, and they're foreseeing that people will have to not only change jobs and within jobs work themselves into new areas much more quickly, but it's also the start of a mosaic career where people don't only have one job. They may have one employed job. They may have 1 or 2 self-employed jobs, where they do some marketing on the internet, for example. And then they may have, a side hustle in investment, and they may have something else that they do on the weekends. Because a lot of times Like investment, they say that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, it's kind of the same now because there's so much change now. One job, one thing that you're doing right now, which seems very, very secure, could be gone tomorrow. I mean, take a look at TomTom, for example. These TomTom, these navigators. Great idea, right? Until Google brought Google Maps. And suddenly there was a product out there that was free. And there went the TomTom. It wasn't their fault. And things like that have happened again and again. Netflix, for example, with blockbusters, right? So you may have a really, really great product, you may have a really, really great job, and suddenly it's all going to be automated and you're out of a job. So you want to make sure that you're always nimble, that you always know how to work yourself into something else. And if you have one job, that you still have two other jobs that also give you some income while you're working on the next one. And that sounds very stressful, but it could also be really exciting because, it brings so much variety in life. And once you know how to do this, it may just be the one thing that you always wanted to do. You just didn't realize it because you didn't know that the opportunity was out there. It will be. So I hope that this was very helpful to you. So if you want to take advantage of this offer, go to www.nivelle.co.uk/job-videos. Again, this is www.nivelle.co.uk/job-videos. It is on the slide here. And please do come and please do sign up. And we are really looking forward to seeing you there and seeing you in the mastermind. And if you're in the mastermind, we can also work together. It's not just going to be me there. It's going to be other people as well, like-minded individuals who all have different skills. Some may have skills in marketing, some may have skills in technical aspects, some may have skills in IT, for example, and everybody can help each other. This is what people have done for decades at the very, very high levels in industry. It just didn't really filter down. It was usually at CEO level, So now this is changing. A lot of masterminds are being formed, and we can be a part of a mastermind that can also be really good for the future. And we can leave a legacy, and that is the most important thing. We're all at the age, probably, if you signed up to this webinar now, that you're thinking about what can you leave behind. And what do you want to leave behind? Do you want to leave behind that, you kind of couldn't take care of all these changes and you kind of faded away? Or do you want to leave behind to your children that the future can be a wonderful thing? That if you adapt, if you become flexible, and you can get flexible at any age, that things can actually work out really well. So the future can be beautiful, and I hope I will see you. So go to www.nivelle.co.uk/job videos. There should also be a button somewhere down here where you can sign up, and I will see you on the other side.